Hey, what's up everyone? So in the last two episodes, we were able to see how we can execute a JavaScript program on the browser and also how we can use Node.js to execute a JavaScript program outside the browser. So using Node.js is really awesome because now we can have this kind of a setup where I have the terminal here and I'm coding here and we directly see our output. So if you want to have this kind of a setup, please make sure you do check out my last video so that you can get this kind of a setup. Now, in this episode, I want us to cover the basics of variables. So we'll see the different ways in which we can declare variables in JavaScript, and also we'll see the rules of naming variables in JavaScript. But later on in the course, we will be covering more concepts about variables in JavaScript, especially when we get to things like hoisting and scope. So for now, let's just cover the basic concepts which everyone who is working with JavaScript should know. Okay, so to declare variables in JavaScript, we use a let keyword. So right here, I'll add a comment and we'll talk about a comment in a minute. But we use a let keyword in modern JavaScript. In old JavaScript or in old ways, we used var keyword. So we can still use it, but it's not recommended in modern JavaScript. And also we have what we call const for declaring what we call constant variables. And we'll take a look at examples for each of these, okay? So as I told you, this is called a comment in JavaScript when we start with / like this, and a comment is not executed by our JavaScript engine. It will be ignored, okay? And we use comments to add extra notes in our code, maybe to explain some things about the code, but these comments are not executed, okay? It's just for us to work with as developers. Awesome. So this is how you add a single line comment. If you want to add a multi-line comment, you can start with a / and then a star, and then in here you write your comment, and then you can end with a star and a / okay? So we use this for multi-line comment. For a single line comment, we use 2 / like that. Awesome. Now let's take a look at let. To declare a variable with the let, we can say let age be equal to 20. So what is a variable to start with? So you can think of variables as pointing to specific values in memory. So right here, age is pointing to a value of 20, and this 20 is a variable in memory. And we'll be seeing how these values are stored in memory later on in the course, okay? But some people like to think of it as variables storing values. So they will say that age is storing a value of 20. But in real sense, variables point to values. And we can change which values they are pointing to. So right here, I can say console.log of age. And let's see what we get at our output. When I save this, right here we are getting 20. But we can change which value it's pointing to. So right here I can just say age is equals to 30. And in this case, what will be our output? Will it be 20 or 30? In this case, it will be 30 because we changed the value. We changed the value that age is pointing to. So it will stop pointing to 20 and start pointing to 30, okay? So that is it when it comes to declaring a variable using the let keyword. When using the var keyword, it's similar way, but we have key differences which we'll be seeing later on in the course. But right now we can say something like var, and I can say first name, let it be equal to Charles. And now this first name is pointing to a value of Charles, and this Charles is a value in JavaScript, and this value is called a data type, which is a string, okay? So you can see we have a difference between this and this. This is a string and this is a number, but they are values, okay? So they are values, but they have different data types. So this is pointing to a value of Charles, and we can change to where it's pointing to when we say first name, let it be equal to Chaoo, and we end with a semicolon. And now here when I say console.log of first name, we will get Chaoo to the console. So when I save this, we get 30, which is this one, and we get Chaoo. So here we have changed where our first name is pointing to. It's no longer pointing to Charles, it's pointing to Chaoo. And then we can use first name to access our value Chaoo. Okay, awesome. Now, what is a const? So a const behave different from let and from var, because once we declare a variable using const, we can't change the value that it's pointing to. Okay, so let's have an example. So right here you can say const website be equal to YouTube. Let me scroll. Now right here, when we try to point website to a different value, if we say website is equals to Twitter, now this would throw an error. So if I come right here and say console.log of website and save this, look, we are getting an error, type error, assignment to a constant variable. So, and you can see it's pointing to line 19 right here, and it's complaining about website being equal to Twitter. Why? Because once we declare it like this using const keyword, we can't change it. Like now this is a constant, it will remain to be that way. So I can remove this, and now when I save, you will see that the error is gone, and now we have 30, Chaoo, and YouTube at our console. Okay, so when using constant, we can't change the values that our variables are pointing to. Okay, so which one should you use? In modern JavaScript, 99% of the time it's recommended that you use const, and then that 1% of the time it's recommended that you use let, when you are sure that you want that value to change later on. Okay, so don't use var, because var is an old way of doing things, and later on in the course we'll be seeing major differences between let, var, and const. And for now, I just wanted you to get this basic understanding of variables. But let's see the rules of naming variables real quick. Okay, so right here we can see the rules, and I will use a comment. Let's see the rules for naming our variables. The first major rule is that a variable name can only contain letters, digits, symbols, and only two symbols are allowed, that is the $sign and the underscore. So yeah, it can only contain this, so you can't use some weird symbols right here. You can't use a percentage, that will throw an error, you see. But you can use an underscore, or you can use a $sign. So right here we can say age, we can use an underscore, but that will not throw an error, so that is allowed. But another rule is that you should not start with a number. So for declaring a variable right here, you cannot start with a number like that. Okay, you can use a number, yes, but you cannot start with it, but you can include it in here. You can end with it, but you cannot start with a number. So that is another rule. You should not start with a number. Must not start with a number. Okay, another rule is that you should not use spaces in your variable name. Instead, you should use what we call camel case. You should use what we call camel case instead of spaces. So right here, you can see this is what we call camel casing. If you have multiple words in your variable, the first word you start with a small letter, and then for the rest of the words, you'll start with a capital letter. But you can't use first name like a space like this, so that will throw an error. Also, it's not recommended that you start with a small letter. You can do it, but it's not recommended. Okay, another rule is that you should not use reserved words. So, no reserved words. So an example of a reserved word is a const. So when we declare a variable age here, we can say let const. So that will throw an error, you can see. And then we can't use a keyword like function. So if I use function right here, it will also throw an error. So you learn more about the keywords and the reserved words in JavaScript as we proceed in the course, okay? But note that you can't use a reserved word in declaring variables. Awesome. And then this is more of a recommendation than a rule. You should use descriptive words, okay? Or descriptive variable names. Descriptives. So your variable names should be easy to read and understand. So when I read like this Const website, what do I expect YouTube is? I expect it to be a website. So this is descriptive. But what if I said const x? Const x is equals to YouTube. X is not descriptive. So avoid words that are not descriptive. Now, one last thing is that variables are case sensitive. So an example is like right here, we had a variable age, we gave it 20, and then we reassigned it to 30. But now right here, when we try to say age with a caps here, these will not access our age here. It will throw an error. So when I save this and this code runs right here, you will see age is not defined, a reference error at line 9. So you can see here it's line 9, this one. So age is not defined because variables are case sensitive. So take note of that. And yeah, that is it. That is all I wanted to cover for this particular episode. We have learned about let, var, const. Which one should you use? 99% of the time, use const. But if you are sure that you want to change that value later on, that is when you will use let. Just avoid var, okay? But later on in the course, we'll be learning some key differences of let, var, and const, and we'll also see how they access our values here and how these values are stored in memory. This was just a good introduction to variables for everyone to get started with. And in the next episode, what we'll take a look at is data types. So we'll see things like numbers, like this one. We'll learn more about strings. We'll learn about null, undefined, and so on. So if you find information in this episode helpful, please remember to leave a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one.